Hello, happy summer, happy July. Welcome to the Royal Rota. If you're wondering why me and Lizzie look slightly sun-kissed, it's because we just spent quite a few days on the Isles of Scilly, in the far southwestern tip of the United Kingdom. And how glorious was that place?
Oh my word, it's so beautiful there. I've never been before, but it is. It's like being on a Caribbean island. It's absolutely magical.
It was, yeah. I'm sure if you do follow us on social media, you would have been bored of all our pictures saying, "Hey, look at this! It's so nice."
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's ideal for taking photographs, isn't it? With its sort of turquoise sea and fine white sandy beaches. We felt very lucky.
Amazing. Very, very lucky to be there. So welcome to the Royal Rota, your weekly podcast. Probably the last one, I think we've decided, for the summer, because the Royals will wind everything down in the next few days for the summer break. We're also going on a summer break. So as much as I'd love to talk to you from my location, wherever I end up, and that's COVID permitting, I won't. We'll reconvene in September, probably. So this is your weekly podcast on all things royal from ITV News. You can find us on YouTube, on your favorite podcast platform, which means you can watch us or you can just listen to us. However you get us, it's a pleasure having you with us. And thank you very much for your, I was going to say custom, but you don't pay us for it. So thank you very much for your loyalty.
Yeah, custom, definitely don't pay for it.
You can pay me if you like. You can pay me to do this.
I can. Right, should we begin?
Robinson's Royal Rundown is about to begin. So if you want to find out, if you're new to this podcast, this is what we do at the beginning of every podcast. So you can find out in about a minute or minute and a half exactly what they've all been up to for the past 7 days. So Robinson is Lizzie, Royal is that lot, and the rundown is what you're about to hear.
So to start with this week, as we mentioned, it was the annual Devon and Cornwall week for the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall, and that included this year a visit to the Isles of Scilly, which we joined them for the day for. So a very beautiful place, but a very serious message on climate change while we were there that we can take you through. Shock announcement this week. We had just arrived on the Isles of Scilly and a press release landed on our inboxes to say that Prince Harry was publishing his memoir. So that will be very interesting to see what he has to say there. Prince George turns 8 today. So we are recording on Thursday to go out on Friday. So Thursday the 22nd, and Prince George is 8. And we were treated to a new photograph of him, which had a very lovely subtle nod to his late great-grandfather, the Duke of Edinburgh. There was an announcement this week that there will be a book to accompany the Earthshot Prize. There was a message from the Princess Royal, who is president of the British Olympic Association, ahead of the Olympics, which finally get underway officially tomorrow with the opening ceremony, and some very fun photographs of a knitted Sandringham.
A knitted Sandringham, and we'll tell you all about that later. But yeah, I think we should start with the email that dropped into my inbox at, here we go, 18:31, so 6:31 p.m. on Monday. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, will publish a literary memoir with Penguin Random House, globally in late 2022. Prince Harry is writing a book, everyone. He's writing his memoirs, and we all went, oh, so the thing they did with Oprah Winfrey wasn't the last time they're going to speak about what happened.
Yeah, you have to wonder how much more there is to say, because not only have we had that 2-hour interview with Oprah Winfrey that was came out earlier this year with all those bombshell allegations in it. We've had his Apple TV series with Oprah. We had that podcast that he did. We had the open bus ride with James Corden, where he chatted to him at length, and it was quite revealing. So you have to wonder what's left to say, but obviously there is, and
there's a lot to say in Prince, that's for sure. And the book will come out in late 2022, and there's been a lot of conversation, and he's left the royal family, so why should he worry? But then he does also say that he respects his grandmother, but it's coming out in the same year as her big old jubilee.
Yeah, the Platinum Jubilee, 70 years on the throne. She'll be the first monarch to hit that milestone next year, and it's a big celebratory year. You know, although it'll be the main weekend of celebrations will be focused in June. The whole year is going to be a feel celebratory around that date.
So let's tell you what we do know. What we know is, according to Penguin Random House, the publishers, it will be an intimate and heartfelt memoir from, these are their words, not ours, one of the most fascinating and influential global figures of our time. Which is quite a claim, but I suppose, that's not wrong, is it? I mean, Harry is influential. He's on the global stage. Everyone knows who he is. He's, him and Meghan are mega famous in America, here, in many other parts of the world as well. So are they wrong to say he's one of the most fascinating and influential global figures of our time?
Fascinating, certainly. I mean, everything he said, people poured over, from that Oprah interview to them leaving the family. Everything they do is, the choice of name for their daughter Lilibet. Everything they do is poured over and written about. So I think
Fascinating, yes. What about influential and a global figure? I mean, there's been a lot of people sort of, pouring over that particular phrase. But actually, if you break it down, yes, he's fascinating. Yes, he's influential. He's able to, get companies to do things, to listen to him. You think of Invictus Games. You think of what was that big event they did in California recently on that massive stage?
the vaccines.
Yeah, vaccine. Yes, exactly. Yeah, along with Joe Biden and others. So influential, yes. Global figure. Well, everyone around the world knows him. So, I'd say that was probably quite accurate. Although a lot of people have wondered about the reasons for writing those words. Fascinating and influential global figure.
Well, he promises in his own words that this is going to be a first-hand account of his life that is accurate and wholly truthful. So he obviously feels there's more he wants to say.
Yeah, no, accurate and wholly truthful, yes. But then wasn't that what Oprah is all about, accurate and wholly truthful? Or is it just that they focused on a very small part of his life, which was the departure from the royal family and all the things around Archie and everything? So this is a book going from the very beginning, presumably, covering his mother's death, covering, what it was like growing up in the royal family, what it was like having Prince Charles as a single father. I suppose there is a lot to be written here. I suppose the question that people have asked, and perhaps justifiably, is this is a very strange way to go about seeking less publicity.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're certainly they haven't done anything to shy away from being in the public eye since they moved. Really, I mean, I listed earlier all the times they've taken to do big global interviews, and they know the attention that they draw. So you're right. I mean, this is not in any way shying away from publicity, but it is. They want to control the narrative around themselves, and what better way to do it than to have full control over the book and put it in your own words in a first-hand.
And I suppose they never said they didn't want any publicity, just they wanted their own publicity and publicity that they could control, and they are controlling this. But there's a lot of it. I mean, there is Oprah, there is the podcast, there is the Apple TV series. Meghan's announced another cartoon with Netflix. I mean, they've got to earn money as well, and they said they wanted to be financially independent. And I suppose that's another point about this book, is they said that the proceeds, whatever it's worth, there've been lots of people writing £20 million, will go to charity, so they won't actually benefit financially from this book.
Yeah, so this doesn't appear to be about the money. As you say, it's going to charity. So he obviously feels there's more he wants to say, and to set the record straight. But as you say, the publishers say it's going to cover his lifetime in the public eye, from his childhood right through to the present day. So there's a lot that it can cover. I mean, even recently, the departure from the royal family. He touched on in the interview being financially cut off from the family. He can talk about the Sandringham summit if he wants to. Talk about.
It's a one-sided account again, though, isn't it? Because the thing with the royal family is they themselves don't write books. They themselves don't do interviews about what's happened within family dynamics. It makes this a very difficult one-sided story yet again, because they don't get to have their say about how they felt Harry and Meghan left, about how they felt Harry and Meghan were to work within the royal family. So, I mean, that is obviously one of the problems. And as far as we can tell, Lizzie, this took all the palaces by surprise, because we won't say who and where and when, but we know people who were with palace types when it was announced, and they had absolutely no idea. They had no forewarning that Harry was gonna write a bunch of memoirs.
No, I think as the press release hit our inboxes, that's when pretty much they found out as well. So there was no forewarning there. And I mean, there has to be concern. What else is he going to say and reveal in this book? But as you say, I think it took them, caught them off guard.
And it could be a moment, once this book is out and everyone's read it and put all the allegations or whatever to the royal family, it could be another moment for the palace to find a form of words, something like recollections may vary or some such.
Yeah, that very short statement that they put out after the Oprah Winfrey interview earlier this year. But as you say, I mean, the royal family aren't going to, we're not going to see a constant back and forth. So it's sort of very one-sided, and it's sort of been a bit of a tsunami. But when do people, it feels like maybe, people we talk to, when even the public have maybe had slightly too much. I mean, it's been saturated.
Well, yes, you say that, but then I think this will be a global bestseller without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, everyone wants to hear about it. Everyone wants the inside track about what goes on inside the palace walls, and I've absolutely no doubt that I don't think people are tired of it, and they'll take as much as they can get. It's probably worth us reading for you something that Prince Harry said in his book. These are his words, or a quote attributed to him. "I'm writing this not as the prince I was born, but as the man I have become. I've worn many hats over the years, both literally and figuratively." So presumably he means, hats to do with mental health, but then actual hats to do with army and piloting helicopters, etc. "And my hope," he said, "is that in telling my story, the highs and lows," there's a little warning sign for the royal family, "the mistakes and the lessons learned, I can help show that no matter where we come from, we have more in common than we think." Quite interesting, he said, about mistakes and lessons learned, because one of the criticisms of the Oprah interview was that they weren't a single little bit contrite. There was no contrition in that interview. There was no like, well, maybe we did something wrong. It was all everyone else's fault. So I wonder, when sitting down and writing a book, it might be that little bit more reflective, because it's a different way of communicating than doing it in a TV interview.
Yeah, we said after that TV interview, didn't we, on this podcast, how it did feel very much like the blame was always put onto somebody else, and that they took little account of things themselves. So perhaps, as you say, writing a book is maybe a chance for him to do that. We will have to wait and see until the tentative date is late next year, but we'll see. It's certainly not going to be this year.
No. So we've got a while to wait, but they call it a definitive account of the experiences, adventures, losses, and life lessons. They talk about his service, of course, in Afghanistan, the joy he's found in being a husband and father. And the book will be an honest and captivating personal portrait, one that shows the readers that behind everything they think they know lies an inspiring, courageous, and uplifting human story. So,
whether they will come back next year for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, as we mentioned. You have to wonder, there were some reports that they wanted to have Lilibet christened over at Windsor, like Big Brother Archie. The family haven't met Lilibet yet, because they're over in America. You have to wonder whether they will come back over, and how they will be received with this new book now looming over everybody.
Now, you mentioned Lilibet. That gives me a perfect opportunity to jump off the book story and talk about another story that's doing the rounds, which actually, at first I thought, okay, maybe it's an oversight. But then it's clearly been brought to the palace's attention, because they have responded. And yet, when we checked this morning, and if you have a look at this list we're about to put up in front of you, if you're watching on YouTube, this is a list on royal.uk, the official royal family page, of succession and who follows the sovereign in becoming the next one on the throne. So we all know it goes the Queen, Prince Charles, Prince William, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis, Prince Harry. Archie, and then Lilibet, which makes Lilibet number 8.
Number 8, she
Number
pushed
8. And if you're looking at this list on YouTube at the moment, you will see that at number 8 is the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. And Lilibet's not on that list at all. Now, given how old she is, what, a couple of months now?
She just over a month.
Yeah. So, and they haven't yet updated that. Now, the palace says that the website gets updated periodically, and it's like, oh god, they've got a lot of pages, they've got to update them. But you kind of think that they would have put that name in by now, because I know she's in America, she was born in America, and I know Harry and Meghan have left the royal family. Nevertheless, she is still 8th in line to the UK or the British throne.
Yeah, that remains, even though they have left senior working members of the royal family, even though the children haven't taken HRHs, even though currently they're not.
Yeah. And children don't have HRHs, but they're on the list. If you have a look at it, you can see them on the list. So you've got to ask, what's taken them so long? All they've got to do is like do a sort of space bar, hit the paragraph button, put in a different number. And they must have done it before. They did it for Archie, clearly. They did it for Louis when he was born. And they've done it for some of the other children, like August, that's been born as well. So where's Lilibet?
They update the website periodically. So
yeah, periodically. I mean, okay, I can forgive them a week or two, but like a month?
You could offer your services, given you've said how you do it.
Yeah, well, if they allow me into the website, which I'm sure they wouldn't, I could probably do it in about half an hour. So I just honestly don't know what's taking them so long. And actually, is this them being a little bit petulant? Is it them saying, well, we'll get round to it when we're ready? But it does, to me, feel like, I don't know, maybe they're making a point.
I mean,
discuss.
I mean, there are reports, as you say, doing the rounds, and people have noticed and are questioning why. Players at the palace have said that it will be updated in due course.
Yeah. I mean, I got the impression for the palace, oh, this is just a summer story. I mean, no one's really taking this very seriously. But, you know, okay, it's not the biggest deal in the world. But baby's born, list isn't updated, happens to be Harry and Meghan's child. So you got to kind of think, well, why not?
Why not?
Well, okay, we don't know is the answer. But, I mean, bookmark the page. It's royal.uk/succession. I don't know. If well, we've got it up on the screen now for you. But if you keep an eye on that page, maybe you can let us know when it does get updated, and then maybe when another baby's born, we can see if it takes them 6 weeks to do that. Anyway, should we move on?
Let's move on.
We move on to sunny climes.
Sunny climes. It's very sunny. Sunny on the mainland as well at the moment. It's very warm.
Yeah, anyone who's living in the UK, or most of the UK, I should say, because not all parts of Scotland and Northern England sometimes don't get the same weather that others get in the south. But the majority of the UK is currently basking in some very hot weather, which, as you know anything about the UK, is we always rejoice when the weather's quite nice here, because it isn't very often. So we were lucky enough to travel with Charles and Camilla. So they were spending a week of engagements in Devon and Cornwall, which is in the southwest corner of England. And off the southwest corner of England, you all know there's a place called Land's End, which most people, as the name suggests, it's the end of the land. But then there are a group of islands called the Isles of Scilly. Now, what do we learn about the Isles of Scilly, Lizzie? 200 islands in this archipelago. Only 5 of them are inhabited, and total number of inhabitants is about?
There's about 2,300 in total across the 5 islands. The main island is St Mary's, and that has about 1,300 odd.
Yeah, so not many people is what we're saying. Yeah, and so Charles and Camilla went over there. Very interestingly, is actually the whole islands, I sound like an islander. The whole islands are run by the Duchy of Cornwall, which is, you know, Prince Charles's estate that pays for him for being the Prince of Wales, the heir to the throne. So everyone there is a kind of tenant of the Duchy of Cornwall, which is kind of odd, because when Charles comes over, the kind of landlord has come, which I always find slightly strange. So the landlord was over seeing all of his tenants. One of our favourite facts about one of the smaller islands they went to, called Briar, has a population of about
80.
80, yes. But as a taxi driver said to us who was from Bryce, she said, well, when I lived there, it was 72, but I think it's now around 80 because they built a couple of houses, which I think was one of our favourite stories of the island. But anyway, have a look on our social media. We'll put up some of the pictures now about the beauty of this island. Now, I mean, the trouble is you can't get there very easily. You've got to get the ferry or you've got to fly. It also gets very booked up about 3 years in advance. They've got these flowers, as you can probably see in some of the pictures I put up on my Twitter and Instagram, called agapanthus, big, tall, bluey, purpley flowers, which are everywhere. They've got these succulents, these sort of like green rose leafy things that look like they're from some kind of tropical island. It did feel like being somewhere in the tropics, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And we flew in on a really tiny little aircraft, and you got to see amazing sort of blue turquoise waters and the very fine white sandy beaches. And yes, it's absolutely stunning there.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder tourism makes up I think it's 85% of the local economy there. People flock to the islands in the summer, particularly this year because it's part of the UK, so people are allowed to go there on holiday. And someone said, I think population trebles at around this time of year.
3 times as many tourists as there are sort of residents. Anyway, so Charles and Camilla were there. They went to 2 of the islands. But one of the stories that we covered when we were there is actually the risk that faces the Isles of Scilly from sea level rising because of its position in the southwest of England, because it's surrounded by the Atlantic like it is, because of the direction of the prevailing wind and the weather. This is the bit of the UK or the British Isles that is most at risk from sea level rises, and scientists predict that perhaps wave heights could increase around the Isles of Scilly by up to 1 metre by 2080. And obviously then when storms come, that's a big threat to the island. Now, this is an issue, of course, that Prince Charles takes everywhere. He tries to raise it up the political agenda when he can. For example, he went to the G7 summit and spoke to world leaders there. And people might know that there's a massive UN climate change summit coming up called COP26, which the UK is hosting in November in Glasgow. And therefore, that's something we are expecting Prince Charles to have a very key role in, and will attend. We don't know what shape his role will be at this present time, but when he went to the Isles of Scilly and he was speaking to some of the children there about their concerns, because I think when you live on an island, you do feel very vulnerable, and I think you are very much connected to nature, and you understand how your livelihoods are affected by changes in temperature and storms and climates and things. And at the school, Lizzie, he spoke to those children who seem to be very switched on about matters of the environment and sustainability.
They really are really engaged with this issue. But, they said to us that while they have set up an eco committee and they're doing what they can, and that it shouldn't fall to children to be dealing with this. And they've really urged world leaders to tackle this and to put actions to their words.
We spoke to Fraser and Isla, who are a couple of children at the school. In fact, it's the only secondary school on the island, and it serves all 5 of the inhabited islands. But this is what Fraser and Isla said to us.
It's a massively international thing that really affects us concentrating in Scilly. So if you were to do a beach clean, you would find that, a good 80% of the plastic bottles and crisp packets that you find are, from America or anywhere, and it's not so much a problem in Scilly, it's just being focused onto Scilly. And similarly with the rising sea levels, you can see the cliffs have eroded back every year, and you can see the obvious damage.
You are the next generation, you're the future, you're the children, and actually, climate change for you, living where you live, is kind of front and centre. You can feel the change. Yeah, absolutely. What would you like world leaders to do to really get to grips with climate change?
I just think they need to sort of. I don't know what they're waiting for. Yeah. It's not going to go away by talking about it and making it small or unachievable. That are so large they're unachievable. Claims and pledges. I think.
What are you waiting for? The science is there.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the younger people having to take action. It should be the generation above, I think.
It should be the people that have the influence to be able to make massive change instead of having to encourage people. It should be things that can be implemented by that person.
It's actually quite hard to imagine, isn't it, Lizzie? Like when an island is as beautiful as it is and the seas are still and calm, actually how different it is in the winter. And one of the islands that Charles and Camilla went to, Briar, this one that had population of 72, now 80, we told you about just now. They went to this place called Island Fish. We saw some absolutely ginormous crabs. I mean, they were off to the market, as it were, and some lobsters as well. There's a picture of some of them on my Twitter. But Charles and Camilla went in there. I think Camilla made some purchases. She so liked the place. But we had some crab sandwiches as well. I don't know when the crab was caught, but it tasted very nice. But I think here you have a family, don't you, who have fished these seas, at least their ancestors have fished these seas since the 1600s. And they told us actually what it was like in the wintertime, and nothing like what we were seeing in the middle of July.
Yeah, as tourists, all you see is the beauty and the sunshine, and that's the images that are used of the Isles of Scilly. But we saw some fairly dramatic pictures of storms and what it looks like when it's not so idyllic. And the family, as you say, at Island Fish, they have fished the waters around Scilly for generations, and they fish sustainably, which they were telling Prince Charles about. But they've said that they have no choice but to adapt to whatever is thrown at them.
Yeah, like when you're an islander, that's exactly what you got to do. And actually, Mark, one of the family, was saying, "Well, that boat out there, that's mine. That boat over there, that's my father's. That's my nephew's. That's my brother's." I mean, it was definitely a family organisation and a family run business. But as I said, it can be quite hard in the winter, and this is what Mark and Amanda, brother and sister, told me about the conditions in the Scillies. Nothing like what we were seeing on that beautiful, calm turquoise sea. Can be quite different in the winter.
When we have a big sea and a ground sea and the whole ocean is moving, all the sea is churned up from top to bottom, it's the surge that does the damage.
The family that have lived here over the years or centuries have adapted to changes, and I'm very, very confident that any children of ours, if you live on an island, you have to be resourceful. They will adapt.
So that was one of the days they were in the southwest of England. The other days were also in other parts of Devon and Cornwall. Actually, there was at Exeter Cathedral. There was a great picture that you'll find on our social media, but we'll show it to you now if you're watching on YouTube, of Prince Charles looking like he had a halo on his head, which was taken by Chris Jackson, which looked like someone was at least pleased that he turned up at the cathedral. But it looked like a great week, supporting businesses that are all recovering from the pandemic and all having to sort of readapt to the new normal, or whatever we say now, including drinking pints and meeting a very famous children's author.
Yeah, there were some lovely images on their final day of their Devon and Cornwall week of the Prince of Wales, or the Prince of Ales, as some of the newspapers.
Clever,
of him enjoying a pint in the sunshine, and who can blame him?
Yeah, exactly. And Michael Morpurgo, who, if you've got children, you've probably read some of Michael Morpurgo's books, and he was there. So, yeah, I mean, listen, great to be part of that week down in the southwest. And I'm trying to make a link here. Prince Charles's grandson had a birthday.
You're going with that link. I thought you were going on an Earthshot link, so I got those notes ready.
I see. I caught you out. Yeah. So there's the link. So Prince Charles was in the southwest of England. Prince Charles has a grandson. He's called George, and George turned 8.
George turned 8 today, which is Thursday, the 22nd of July. And as is customary with the Cambridge children birthdays, we were given a new photograph late yesterday evening of Prince George that was taken by Mum, the Duchess of Cambridge, at their home in Norfolk, and it was taken earlier this month, and he's perched on top of a Land Rover Defender, isn't he?
Yes, the Land Rover Defender, of course, which famously carried Prince Philip's coffin for that final journey in Windsor Castle just a few months ago now.
The Land Rover that he's sitting on isn't the Land Rover.
No, sorry, yes, but it is a Land Rover Defender, yes, the one that William and Kate have. But yeah, I think it was seen as a kind of nod, wasn't it, to his great grandfather, because we knew how much he loved driving that particular car. Now, George has a father called William, and William has something called the Earthshot Prize, which we've told you about before, which is quite a big prize, which they want in time to be as big as the Nobel Peace Prize, in order to encourage people to find solutions to climate change. And it was announced that actually they're kind of making a book of the Earthshot Prize.
A book that will come out later this year when the Earthshot Prize happens. I think it comes out just before. And the book will highlight the urgency of the environmental challenges facing our world, while also providing readers with inspirational case studies of the incredible solutions happening globally to repair our planet.
Yeah, and Earthshot actually takes another notch up, doesn't it, in the autumn when they've got one of the prizes, and a big TV show in order to promote it. Something that's going to be on TV a lot in the next couple of weeks is the Olympics. There won't be any crowds in Tokyo, of course, but there will be plenty of people supporting them, including the president of the British Olympic Association, who will be supporting Team GB, who is
the Princess Royal, and she recorded a message that went out this week ahead of the games kicking off officially tomorrow, Friday, when the opening ceremony will happen.
As your president, I would like to wish you every success for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Although I'm sad not to be there in person, I and the whole nation will be cheering for you and proudly supporting you from home. I do remember from my own Olympic journey the anticipation and excitement of stepping onto the Olympic stage, but also the single-minded focus on what you need to do. I know that you have all worked incredibly hard for this moment during the most challenging of times, and I hope you will find the GB team environment a support and an inspiration for you. This is your Olympics. It will be different, but not in its importance to you. Savour it, and above all, enjoy it. Good luck, and I look forward to celebrating your achievements with you in the autumn.
Of course, Princess Anne herself was an Olympian, wasn't she? If you're old enough, you might remember her competing in the 1976 Olympics in Montreal in Canada on a horse. There was a picture, wasn't there, that Buckingham Palace put out of her with a headscarf around. She looks like her mother there with that headscarf around her head, competing in the Olympics in 1976. What was it, in the 3-day eventing or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and her daughter Zara has also competed, although not in the team this year. She's just obviously had baby Lucas.
Yeah.
And do you remember when after the Duke of Edinburgh passed away earlier this year, and the Princess Royal released a message talking about how, you know,
and a new well, not a new picture, but the picture she chose was the one of her with
and her father at the Olympics in 2012.
Yeah, well, good luck to Team GB. But of course, if you're watching this in another part of the world, like the US, good luck to Team USA. Or if you're watching this in Canada, good luck to Team Canada. Or if you're watching this, whatever, I won't do all countries that are competing in the Olympics because we might be here for some time.
Yeah.
Yes, good luck to all the teams competing in the Olympics. And it's going to be a tough one with COVID and no spectators and all the rest of it. Not the most easy time for anyone when it comes to sport at the moment. Now, you can't really call knitting a sport, can you? Knitting is a skill, it's a craft. Now, I kind of saw some pictures of this on some other royal correspondent's social media feed and wondered what on earth it had to do with anything. And it turned out it did have something to do with royal. It was all to do with something at Sandringham.
Yeah, so Margaret Seaman, who is 92, she has painstakingly knitted Sandringham, which is obviously the Queen's Norfolk home. The house itself is 18 foot long, includes intricate architecture, chimneys, windows surrounded by knitted trees. You can see the little figurines, the Queen and the late Duke of Edinburgh, the Cambridges are there. And she's done all this with the aim of raising money for local hospitals.
I'm just looking at some of the pictures now, and you've got her standing in front of it. I must admit that the correspondent on whose social media I saw it was Russell from the Mirror, who actually wrote these words. I jest you not. Wool, I'll be damned. Wool, I'll be damned. Did you get it? Well, I'll be damned. Anyway,
Well,
you didn't find it as funny as he did. But anyway, wool, I'll be damned. There's Margaret in front of her knitted Sandringham, and it is quite the spectacle, isn't it? I mean,
pretty,
had that much time. Stunning.
pretty darn good.
Hey?
Pretty darn good.
Darn good.
Darn
I think
good.
maybe we should. People don't come to this podcast for jokes. They come to this podcast to learn about.
If they were coming for jokes, there we are.
Where was it on display? Do you think the Queen's seen this?
So the Queen has seen this, and she was left impressed by it because it is now on display.
Oh, in the ballroom
at Sandringham. So if you're on the tour of Sandringham, you can also see it. But yeah, the Queen was said to be very impressed.
And she's raised £3,000 for local hospitals and a Just Giving page. So if you want to contribute to that, just go on to Just Giving and search for the knitted Sandringham. And Her Majesty saw it when she visited Sandringham recently. Was very impressed. Now, when did the Queen hasn't been at Sandringham since last summer, has she?
Well,
unless she's been for the weekend, we don't know. Well, we thought she was at Windsor the whole time. Maybe she snuck up to Sandringham for a little bit.
But I mean, Margaret has created a spectacular masterpiece here, and she's spent up to 15 hours a day some days knitting. I mean, it's extraordinary.
That's a lot of knitting. Well done, Margaret. We're all impressed, as you can tell, that you're able to do that at such a sprightly age as well, like 3 years younger than the Queen. So she's clearly, very young is our Margaret. So that was the week that was in Royal Land. And I think that was the year that was, or at least the academic year. The summer is here in the UK. The Royals always take a break. We don't know exactly where they're going. One imagines Charles and Camilla will be in Highgrove. We think the Queen's going to Balmoral at some point, although they never tell us that she's there until she's there. Talking of the Queen and Windsor Castle.
Oh, yes, some good new pictures that we have got today, because for the first time since the pandemic began, they have seen the return of the guard change at Windsor Castle, which resumed today, Thursday.
So, Lizzie, I've just had to add guard change to the list because it wasn't actually on your list.
It wasn't on my list.
So
but
Robinson's Royal Rundown had a very serious error this week.
It was actually a test to see if you noticed.
To see if
you
I
passed,
noticed.
so well done.
And I passed. The changing of the guard has returned to Windsor. COVID is not such a great story. Whilst a lot of the country is double vaccinated, the infections are continuing to rise. So we don't know quite where the royal year is going to go next year, do we? Certainly no big... In fact, we were talking to some royal aides a short while ago, and royal tours, can't see them coming back, certainly not this year, because you're kind of sending out the wrong message to everyone else who's kind of told to stay at home and don't travel to amber countries and green countries. There aren't that many of. If you're not in the UK, we have a list of amber, green and red countries. Green you can go to and come back from. Amber, you've got to do a load of things. Red, you've got to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks. So I think if the royals do any tours anywhere outside the UK, obviously that's going to open them to some form of criticism.
Yeah, I think it'll be... I mean, obviously things are changing very quickly, and we don't know what the picture will look like in a few months at the moment because of the pandemic. So it's very difficult to plan. It's very difficult to know and say definitively whether when a tour will happen again. But, you know, I think when it is safe to do so, when it sends the right message to get them back out and about on tours, you know, they, as much as us covering them, will really want to take the opportunity to get back out again, but they won't do it until A, it's safe, and B, it sends the right message.
Yeah, and it kind of means that the CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government, that's the word. Is the government. Heads of Government Summit in Kigali in Rwanda. That's still TBC, one imagines, even though they're still hoping to have it by the end of the year. We'll have to see what happens to this wave at the moment that we're having in the UK, but also in Europe as well. So no travel for the royals. But I think you could tell, certainly from Charles and Camilla this week, that they're very pleased to be able to be back out talking to members of the public and not having to wear face masks. The rules in England, at least, changed on face masks just at the beginning of this week. And you think that's kind of allowed them to be a bit freer, not to be restricted, to have proper conversations. So,
also, I mean, with the nicer weather, being outside is obviously, they've said all along, it's safer to be outside, and so that's helped. But we know for them how keen they have been to get back out and about and do face-to-face engagements, because while Zoom has been brilliant and has allowed them to continue meeting people throughout the pandemic, there is nothing quite like meeting people face-to-face. And they seem to have a really good time, and they were super engaged when they were out and about. So and we were thrilled to be there.
Yeah, of course we were. So you can probably tell. So I'm going to spend the summer writing my memoirs. I'm going to publish them in late 2022, that kind of time. So just see if there's any interest in what I've got to say about my life.
One might be reading somebody else's at that time.
Hold on, let me write my own press release now. Global figure of significance. I'm going to put in there. Cross all that out.
Artistic license then.
Have a good summer, everyone. Thanks for being with us this year. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you when we return in September.